Happy Thursday night, everybody. As you know, I'm Evan, and Nate is actually not here tonight. So hopefully that doesn't scare you away, and you won't X out of here real quick. For the next 3 weeks, he had a schedule conflict, so he won't be able to make it to the show this week or for the next 2 weeks. But that's okay. We're gonna keep the ball rolling, and right now I'm doing it by myself. But hopefully for next week and the week after, I can find someone to sub in for him, get a little second opinion here, because I know this show is always more exciting because of his opinions, and he tends to disagree with me on certain things, and I think that makes it more fun to watch. So I'll try not to be too boring, and we probably won't go the full hour if it's just me, just because there's only one person talking. So as you might see in the title of this video, I'm spending a lot of the time talking about Google I/O because the keynote was yesterday, and the conference is still going on out in California, and developers are still having a good time. YouTubers like MKBHD are out there, so that's fun. Get hands on all the stuff that I could never dream of flying out there to see. Maybe one day I'll get out there. That'd be fun. But so I just want to jump in and start talking about what they announced yesterday. There was nothing too huge, but I mean, it's Google, so there was a lot of stuff. And I'm just going to go down kind of chronologically because I watched the keynote and I took notes while I went. So uh, the first thing that they started talking about was called Android One, and that's basically a line of handsets that they're making for developing markets like India, China, things like that. Places that don't want to spend $600 on a handset, they're making cheaper ones that are sometimes, I think it said less than $100, and they're not complete crap. They're updated versions of Android, stock Android, and they're usually less than $100. So they're not high end specs, but you get a pretty good phone experience for less than $100. And for less than $100, you can't really complain anyway. So that was the first thing they talked about. And then they went on and talked about what probably 70% of the people that cared about I/O actually cared about, and that's Android L. And I don't know why they called it Android L because they always call it a dessert. So it was ice cream sandwich, and it was jelly bean, then it was not key lime pie, Kit Kat, and so everybody thought it was going to be L for lollipop or something, some other dessert or candy like that. But they just called it Android L. So we'll see if when they release it with whatever phone they have in the fall, maybe they'll give it a real name like lollipop or something not stupid. I don't know. I don't know what you would call it. But when that comes out, let me try to pull up a picture here. Uh, the big thing with it is called material design, and it's where Google is going in terms of, I guess, just design overall across all their operating systems. And so, as you see here, it's just I don't really know how to describe it, but this is the example that Google themselves gave of where they're going with design. And one thing they pushed is how the experience is going to flow across the phone. So an app on a phone is going to fit and size, and the experience will be basically uniform device to device. So if you're talking about using a phone or a tablet, the big thing to developers was people are going to know how to use your apps no matter what. And so that's big because developers can design these apps now and not have to worry about basically parsing apart tablet design and phone design. Uh, Other things that they threw in there, it's not a huge feature heavy release, something like Ice Cream Sandwich was, which was huge added features. But now they're adding, besides the design, they're adding notifications that are a lot more like iOS, in my opinion. And so, as you're used to an Android, up at the top, you get the badge for the app that gives you, say, whatever's trying to notify you, basically. And on iOS, you get it like on the home screen, just in the middle of the screen when it's locked, basically. And so they're adding that type of thing with Android, and they're also making them more interactive, like iOS 8 did. So you're seeing these two companies, Apple and Google, go at each other, adding really similar features, and it's going to make it really hard for people, myself included, when my contract expires, which way I'm going to go. Because my first smartphone was the iPhone 5. I've been in the Apple ecosystem since I've bought technology. But at the same time, in the fall, I'm looking at things like the like the Samsung Galaxy S5, the LG G3, the HTC One M8, or whatever else might be out by that time. I'm on the fence. And The Verge did a write up today actually about how you really need to start. You need to pick an ecosystem that you like and get in it. And I'm kind of still in the in between, but they made the point that these companies are putting out all these killer features, and at the same time they're making it a lot harder to switch once you're in one. And you know what? That's good for them. That's good for their company and their revenues and things like that in the App Store. But for you, I mean, you basically have a choice to make because they've made it to the point where to be in an ecosystem, you need to be fairly invested in that ecosystem. And so things like iTunes and Google Play are going to envelope you in terms of what phone you use and what operating system you use. So other than that, they went on to add, just talk about random small features. I say small, but they're big features. Things like phones and with smartwatches and stuff, there's going to be contextual awareness. So basically, your phone will know based on proximity if you're wearing your smartwatch, and it'll know that it's your smartwatch. So if you're wearing your smartwatch, it won't ask you for your password, but if you don't have your smartwatch on, it'll ask for whatever passcode you set. So that's kind of neat. Uh, it's convenient, and it's it could be a security concern. I can see that, but at the same time, I think it's a neat feature, and it'll be handy if people actually have the smartwatches. And I'll get to that in a little bit. They went on to talk about things like the art performance enhancements. That's boring to most people. Better garbage collection, it's programming stuff, less lag. It's fully 64-bit compatible, like they did with the iPhone 5S last year. There's a battery saver mode, more security settings, better malware protection, which is kind of a gimmick in my opinion because yes, you can get Android malware, but at the same time, I read a stat the other day that said like 0.5% of all Android users have ever been infected with malware. So it's kind of like we're protecting you from malware, but at the same time, you were never really threatened by malware because I don't know. It's harder to get malware on a mobile device just because you're not downloading things like you would to a computer as often. It's different. Plus, Google Play uh, has a screening service, a screening process. I mean, where they screen apps and they don't allow malware into the Play Store in the first place. So the only plausible way to get malware is externally if you sideload apps, like you develop them or someone else develops them and you put it on your phone. Then you can get malware, but it's really an empty concern at that point. And then other than that, the other thing that I saw out of Android L that was truly groundbreaking was kind of cool. Native Android apps are going to run on Chrome OS, and so things like Chromebooks, Chrome boxes, what have you, will run Android apps instead of having to have separate Chrome apps. So they're kind of going the way of Apple with continuity and making things one experience, and they're making tablets, phones, TVs, which I'll get to in a second, wearables, and Chrome devices, Chrome OS devices, and they're making them more one experience. And so that's kind of the direction they're trying to go, and that's a good direction to go, frankly. So they're making progress there. So the next thing at I/O that I wanted to address was Android Wear, and I did a video on this like 2 months ago, I think, basically about the smartwatches, the LG G Watch, the Moto 360, which is the front runner, and it's not even on sale yet, and the Samsung Galaxy Gear, and now the Samsung Gear Live was announced at I/O yesterday. But they demoed the OS as a whole without talking about watches at first, and showed the cards UI that you're used to in Google now. That's kind of what the interface is going to be like on the smartwatch. So you swipe things away. Uh, you can talk to it, things like that. It's cool. I just don't see myself buying one unless it's fairly cheap. Um, it has reminders. Everything's entwined with your phone and the sensors. Like I said, the proximity sensor can unlock your phone without a passcode. Things like that that they basically tie into your phone and make your experience more Google, basically. Uh, it's gonna have glanceable notifications, so it's gonna try to be intelligent and know that this is a notification that you might want to see without getting your phone all the way out of your pocket, and it'll put it on the watch, and it's glanceable to the point where you don't have to sit there and read it like it's a book, basically. So it's more user friendly than pulling your phone out of your pocket, and it's more convenient, and I can see that being useful uh, if they execute it correctly and if apps execute it correctly. Uh, One thing I didn't know before yesterday was that all the devices that they talk about having for Android Wear are water resistant. Because I figured it kind of had to be just because watches pretty much always are, especially something that's electronic. So the G Watch, the the Gear Live, the Moto 360 are all water resistant, which is that's a selling point, but at the same time they should be anyway. So it's kind of funny how they do that. Now, I haven't looked myself because I'm not looking to buy one, but at the keynote yesterday they said that the G Watch, the Gear Live, and not the Moto 360, the G Watch and the Gear Live were going to be available yesterday or today on Google Play for pre-order, I believe, and then shipped sometime like the first week of July. But they said they were going on sale yesterday for pre-order, which is kind of cool that they they put it out there that fast. I don't know. It's quick turnaround. However, the Moto 360 is the circular one. If you haven't seen it, it's really nice looking. It actually looks like a watch, and that's the selling point. And if I were to buy a smartwatch ever, it'd probably be that because so far the G Watch, the Gear Live, the Pebble smartwatches, they've all been square or rectangles, and I think that's completely ugly. And yes, it's easier to have pretty animations on a square screen because it resembles a smartphone screen. But at the same time, it's supposed to be a smart watch. It's not supposed to be a miniature phone taped on your wrist. So I think the Moto 360 is going to be the most successful of the three, if this is successful at all. But the Moto 360 is definitely the favorite horse in the race for Android Wear. The next thing that went and talked about was Android in the car, which is kind of ho hum. It's kind of like CarPlay. Nobody really talks about it with Apple, but basically, I didn't really understand it, but I think they're going to put it in cars like out of the factory somehow. So I don't know if they're going to have a screen pre-built or if they're going to have the ability to put one in, whatever. I'm not sure how that's all going to work. But basically, it's all controlled by your phone, much like the smartwatch is. So it's not getting its own signals or anything. It's phone to dashboard, much like it's phone to smartwatch, all the information and things like that. So you'll be able to get navigation, which is cool. But I mean, cars have had navigation systems for who knows how long, and you've been able to buy your own separate one. But then, as you know, the GPS unit pretty much died when everybody got smartphones. There's no use to have your Garmin if you can just whip out your iPhone and look up the map. So that's my thought on that. But basically, there's a lot of apps that are already pre-configured for not TV, Android in the car. So things like Spotify and Maps apps, I'm sure Google Maps, they're already pre-configured to work. So whenever this does come out, you don't have to worry about these big-time apps configuring themselves to work with Android in the car because they're supposed to work right out of the box, things like that. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see if that even takes off, if manufacturers ever put that in cars. And shout out to Nate here on that one. I'm sure he'd love to put his 2 cents in on Android in the car to see what he thinks about that. Uh, Maybe when he comes back, he can give us his 2 cents on that, but I'm sure he'd have a strong opinion on that. The next thing that they talked about at I/O was Android TV. And so basically, like every OEM in the world is coming out with, you got Roku, you got Chromecast already. They tried to have the Nexus Q, things like that. They have the Kindle Fire TV. So Android and Google are trying to make an OS kind of like Android Wear is that can be on different devices. So they're not making a specific device like the Kindle Fire TV is a specific device, but they're making, say, an OS that OEMs like Sony or other, I didn't see any other ones besides Sony, but things like Sony can put on devices and sell to consumers. So that's good that it's not going to be limited to one device, kind of like the Kindle Fire TV is, because some people might like that interface and not like what the hardware is. Uh, so it's basically what you think of set-top boxes. It's going to have apps, games. The one thing about that sets Android TV apart is it's going to have Android level and beyond gaming. So it might come with a controller. I don't know. Uh, some game studio, I can't remember who it was, but they came out yesterday and said that they're developing games already for Android TV, which is kind of nice because it kind of blurs the line between game console and set-top streaming box. So it's not a Chromecast and it's not an Xbox One. But if you're a casual of both, you know, I can see where the Android TV would come in and be a little bit handy. So if that's cheap, these devices that it's on, I can see myself getting one maybe, depending on what all it offers. I guess we'll have to see that. So that is supposed to come out in the fall when Android L comes out. So I'm guessing they're somehow tied together. And like I said, the material design that they introduced with Android L is going to be on Android L, of course, and Android in the car, Android Wear, and probably Android TV. Because they're, like I said, they're trying to make everything one cohesive experience that just goes together and it just works. So I think that's where they're going with that one. And then the last thing at the end, the trail of excitement kind of went up when they started to talk about Android Wear, and then it really went down at the end. They just started talking about productivity, enterprise, Google, things like that. Just basically boring stuff the developers probably didn't even care about. So one thing that they came out with is Google Docs. There's already been a way where you can convert a Word file into a Google Doc and a Google Doc into a Word document and make it go back and forth and work. But now supposedly it's supposed to be cross-platform to where you can basically save a Word document, open it up in Google Docs with no problems in formatting or anything, and just go back and forth between the two programs all at once. Not all at once, but between, say you're at your PC, then you're at your tablet, and then you're at your Chromebook, whatever. It's supposed to work place to place, and I think that'll be handy, and that'll get a lot more people to use Google Drive because I've been on OneDrive for that reason because I always want to have a Word document, and if Google Drive can keep me as a Word document, I might be over there a lot more. We'll see. Uh, we'll see if that pulls people like me over to get them to use Google Docs more. I don't use Google Docs that often. I pretty much only use it to file share things like a group project for college or something. If four people need to be typing in the same document all at once, it's handy to be able to do that. So we'll see if that has a real effect on the usership of Google Drive, if that can take away from Microsoft Office's market share, basically. Uh, who knows? That was a mouthful. I'm getting a little tired. It's been, what, like 20 minutes? That's all I have for I/O, and that was what I thought would take the longest part of the show. So I'm starting to think that the rest of the show is going to fly by just because I don't have Nate to bounce ideas off of. Uh, so I apologize if you came here wanting to see a hour-long show because you're probably not going to get it. I'll try to come up. I've been really busy this week. I'll try to come up with more things to talk about next week. In the event that I don't have someone to talk with me, if I have to do it alone again, uh, I'll try to come up with more things to talk about so I can go a little bit longer. But the next thing I was just going to talk about was Aereo, I think is how you say it. Aereo, the streaming television service. They basically, their business model is they have a cloud, basically, and I guess they capture signal out of the air, or you do with one of their devices at your house. And I don't know if there's a monthly fee. I never looked into it. I don't live in a big city that would offer that service, so I never even bothered to look into it. But the point being that uh, basically it pulls down signal, puts it in your personal cloud DVR, and then you can watch whatever you want, whenever you want, without a cable subscription. And of course, our friends at Time Warner Cable and Comcast, everybody had a fit because they would lose customers if something like this was allowed to happen. As I don't know. I don't know where I stand on it because it really is a legal gray area. But basically, all the cable companies had a fit because they weren't gonna let somebody walk all over their profit margin for basically free television. So basically, they were in the Supreme Court battling legally over this for I don't know how long, but they ruled that it breaks retransmission laws, and I think it's the FCC bylaws. There's rules that state broadcasters have to pay, I think, producers retransmission fees, I think is how that works. And so cable companies and broadcasters have to pay, like, networks, basically, a retransmission fee. So say Comcast has to pay ABC a fee to retransmit that signal, the ABC signal, and make money off of their ABC signal. And that's a big chunk of change for people like ABC. So both broadcasters and the cable companies were mad because they were going to have to pay for this, and Aereo is not. Aereo, I don't know. But the point is, the broadcasters were also upset because people like Comcast were paying into their pockets with the retransmission fees, which is good for them. But then somebody like Aereo comes along and doesn't have to pay the fee, but yet retransmits the ABC signal. Then ABC loses money, and that's not good. And it seems some people will take it as like a net neutrality issue, but that's taken a little far because there's rules in place already. It's not like they're trying to chop down, uh, rights of citizens or anything like that. It's it's rules that already exist, and Aereo is going to get around them. So I think the Supreme Court made the right decision in striking that one down. I don't usually agree with a lot of decisions that are made in the consumer electronic patent world, but that one I really agree with just because it's not really fair to the broadcasters or people like Comcast. I know we all hate the broadcasters, but it's not really fair to the cable companies if they have to pay for this and Aereo doesn't, and Aereo can still make money off of the service. I don't think it's fair. So I guess the court made a good decision there. What's the next thing? Came out this week actually. Another Google news. Google just has all kinds of news this week. They have a conference and they had news before the conference. Just everything. They're everywhere. They're all over the internet, I guess. Basically they're starting a new service that they quietly launched. You can put your email in and be invited to I guess a beta kind of when they open it up. They're making a domain sales service. So before you could go to Google and say I want to buy a domain, and then basically they would sell it to you, but it'd be through someplace like GoDaddy or One to One or something like that. But now they're starting their own domain registration service, so you can go there and buy domains. There's no word I saw on any prices. It's just I think they're going to have tie-ins for web design with places like Wix and other easy user-friendly web design websites that allow you to buy a domain and then design it right there, which is kind of nice for small businesses and stuff. They don't have the resources and the capital to go out and hire a professional web designer. They can do it themselves, and so I think that's kind of cool. Okay, the next one is kind of exciting for me as I'm trying to decide between things like the LG G3, things like that. The iPhone 6 production is supposed to start in, I think, around about a month or two. And I got a picture here. Techno Buffalo actually posted that they think they might have found leaked pictures of the iPhone 6 body. So this is what I'm hoping for over here, this black one here. I've been hoping for a jet black iPhone for a long time. I like my space gray one. I think no, it's not space gray. It's slate gray. I don't know what it is. The dark iPhone 5. Somebody can leave that in the comments and tell me what that's actually called. But this appears to just be the white one. Let's see what else there's here. It's just the black one again, and it looks like they think they have found the final body. You can see the speaker grill here is kind of like the 5C, where it's just the dots on the one side. Um, so I think they're kind of merging. I think it's still going to be metal, but it's also going to be rounded. You can see how it's rounded off on the edges, down to the sides. So it's definitely going to be a different design. I'm not sure I'm a fan of these bars here. On the black, it doesn't look as bad, but this is super ugly. This is really really ugly. So I hope that part is not final. I hope they don't keep that for Pete's sake. That's awful. Um, so that's all I have for the iPhone 6. I just wanted to point out that it's supposed to be produced soon, and the sooner the better because I think they usually announce them around September, October. September sounds right because then that's when iOS 8 will come out, right with whatever new phone, iPhone 6, whatever. If you haven't been following that story, there's supposed to be a 4.7-inch one and a 5.5-inch one, and at first they thought they weren't going to launch at the same time. They thought they were going to launch the 4.7-inch one in the regular time frame when they would launch an iPhone, but it seems like now they're going to launch them about the same time, and it seems like the 5.5-inch one is going to have more features than the 4.7-inch one, which I don't know. I feel like the people who are loyal to Apple are loyal to Apple because of the size of this thing. Like, if someone really had a problem with how small this 4-inch screen was, they wouldn't have it. You know what I mean? Like, they would have a Galaxy Note 3 or an LG G3 or something like that. So I feel like there's such a thing as too big. 5.5 inches is good for an Android phone because a lot of Android people want a bigger screen for whatever reasons they may have, what have you. But basically, I think that Apple needs to rethink who they're selling this to, what those people want, and I don't know. I just feel like 5.5 inches is too big, and 4.7 inches is pushing it for me. I don't have. I mean, my hands are small, but a 5.5-inch phone won't fly with me. Especially with the price, they're saying that the price of the 5.5-inch one is going to be $299, and the 4.7-inch is going to be like 199, just the regular price. So if there's a premium, maybe put some extra features in it since it's a bigger phone, more room for parts and improved camera pieces, bigger battery, things like that. But a $300 price tag is going to be pushing it for some people because that's up there with the Galaxy Note 3. So you're going to have to rival it in specs to get someone to spend $300 because I don't think just the Apple factor is going to sell that alone. I just don't think it's going to be enough. A couple months ago, I did a video on Amazon's drone delivery service where they were going to basically try and fly packages to people's porches in certain areas, and it was going to be called like Amazon Prime Air, I think. And it's a cool idea, but I did a rant about it, and I don't know how I feel about it anymore. It's been so long. But basically, the FAA put the hammer down and said, you know what, you can't do that. And the ruling that they made was that it's just in concern with danger and having too many things up in the air to hit airplanes and helicopters and anything else that's up there. So they made a rule that drones are legal for recreational use, consumer grade drones, but they also made a ruling that commercial drones are not gonna, they're not gonna. I, I almost made a really bad pun. They're not gonna fly, basically, and I didn't do that on purpose. I swear. Uh, but so at the FAA, yeah, the FAA says that you gotta you gotta quit that Amazon. So we'll see if the Amazon tries to push and try to get that to be allowed. We'll see what they do with that, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So that's that. Next quarter, so that would be quarter three, I think. We're in Q2 right now. But supposedly they're going to be trying, Apple's going to be starting to make a 12-inch MacBook Air. I would assume that would have a Retina display. I don't know. There's not a whole lot that we do know at this point. They just are fairly certain that there's going to be a 12-inch MacBook Air coming out, so we'll see what kind of specs that has. Uh, I would assume that would be released sometime late fall, early winter. I don't know. If it's produced next quarter, it's got to be at least a little bit far off, so we'll see how long it takes them to push that out and if it has good specs, better specs, or anything like that, or if it's just a smaller screen. We'll see what that actually turns out to be. Microsoft, they released the Surface Pro 3. As you may know, me and Nate talked about this. I think last week or the week before, I don't know. It's been a while, but they're trying to kill the laptop basically, and they're trying to blur the line between tablet and laptop. And they want you to get a Surface Pro 3 to replace your laptop. So if you have a MacBook Air, they want to get that out of your hands in any way they can. So in order to do that, they're trying to incentivize buying a Pro 3 by giving a $650 credit towards buying a Surface Pro 3, which depending on what grade of Surface Pro 3 you buy, that can go a long way. So if you buy the low-end one with, I think, a Intel i3 and 128 gigs, or no, like 64 gigs of storage, I think that costs like $999 without the touch cover, which is absurd. That's so expensive. But for the high price, they're going to tack $650 off of it. I'm not even going to go into the more expensive models because I think you can buy one up to like $2,000, and that's like almost beyond MacBook Pro range, and it's debatable performance. It's better performance, I think, than the MacBook Pro in terms of the processor and the graphics, but at the same time, productivity, not having a solid laptop on your lap, there's a trade-off there, and I don't think I want to pay the same amount of money for something that's huge. But Microsoft really wants you to get a Surface Pro 3. They're willing to give you $650 to do it if you buy a Surface Pro 3 and trade in your MacBook Air. So we'll see if people will bite on that. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about it in the coming months, weeks, days, years, whatever. Uh, until we see the Surface Pro 4, and I dread that day. Last week or the week before, I think the week before, we talked about Tesla releasing its patents to the auto industry. Its patents being pretty much just the fundamentals of making a good electric car like the Tesla Model S. And Elon Musk, the CEO, I guess really wants the industry to get behind the idea of electric cars and innovate and make them better and better and more practical and cheaper for the average consumer, because right now the Tesla's like $90,000 or something. So it's not exactly practical for everyone to go out and buy, especially since it gets, I think, like 250, 350 miles range, which is good. But for an electric car, if I'm going to spend 90 grand, I want to get at least 400 miles on a tank. I say tank, a charge, I should say. But so Toyota is actually going the other way with it. Of course, they've had the Prius, they've had electric Priuses. They've pretty much been everywhere. Toyota has, and now they're next year, I think next summer, they're going to launch a hydrogen fuel cell car. And once again, I wish Nate was here to explain this to me, but I'm not a huge science person, so I don't know for sure how fuel cells work. I do know that instead of regular pollutive exhaust, it puts out water vapor. I know that much, but I don't know if you recharge it, if you put water in it, if you buy a new cell every time. I don't know how it works. So I guess we might save that question for Nate next time he's back, because he's huge on cars. If you haven't figured that out, he really likes tech, and I love tech. Tech's my thing, but he likes tech, but cars is his big thing. Automotive industry, things like that. So that's kind of his mantra. So if you hear us talking about things like Tesla or things like that, that's consumer electronics, but that's also his department too, and that's kind of getting him in there for what he really likes to talk about. Now I'm running out of things to talk about, but the last thing I guess that I really planned to talk about was I saw before I came on the air actually that Google Now is supposed to have an update. Let me look at my Nexus 7. I don't have an update that I know of. Um, yeah, not that I see, but supposedly uh, they're supposed to push an update that allows you to say "Okay, Google" anywhere. It's not doing anything, but it's supposed to, you can open up Google Now and say "Okay, Google" and search with your voice. But now it's supposed to be like kind of like the Moto X, where it's always listening, and I don't know how that works, and I don't know if the app's always running, and if that would kill your battery, and I really hope it's not always running, because that could drain the battery a lot, and I don't think that would end well for Google or for anybody. So if that works and they execute it right, that would be kind of cool. If I get it online, I haven't even seen a Google Now update, but if I do get it, I'll let you guys know how much it sucks or doesn't suck. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to talk about. If you're still here at this point, thanks for being here. That only took 35 minutes, and I apologize for being so short. But like I said, Nate's on a conflicting schedule for 3 weeks. He'll be back. I'm going to try to get someone to join me next week, and if I can't, then maybe get someone for the week after. But I'm going to do some networking, work my contacts. I'm going to try to get a hold of somebody to come on and make this show a little more interesting. Not that I thought I was boring tonight, and I hope I wasn't. But yeah, so I will be here regardless. I will be here next week at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Same time as always. And whether or not someone's here with me, we'll see. Just come see the show, and if someone's here, great. And if not, we'll get through it just like I just did. It might not last as long, but you know what? I like talking about the tech news of the week. I just like talking about it to someone who relates, and I know the internet relates to all this. So those of you watching this, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.